General Terry Allen stood in the Sicilian dust, his uniform caked in mud and sweat, watching his bridgehead hold against a German counterattack. He did not know that miles away, Eisenhower's pen was already ending his career. It was August 7th, 1943. The Battle of Troina had just concluded with an American victory. Allen's 1st Infantry Division had shattered German defenses after 6 days of continuous assault. They had won, and in a command post 30 miles behind the lines, General Dwight D. Eisenhower was signing the paperwork to fire him. The relief order was typed on official stationery. Subject: command change, 1st Infantry Division. The language was bureaucratic and cold. Major General Terry Allen, relieved of command, effective immediately. Reason: disciplinary issues within the division requiring fresh leadership. Eisenhower signed it without hesitation. Omar Bradley countersigned it. A courier was dispatched to deliver it to Allen personally. The most successful American combat commander in the Mediterranean theater was being removed at the height of his battlefield success. Not for losing, for winning the wrong way. But while Allen's soldiers were celebrating in the ruins of Troina, Eisenhower was reading a report from Bradley that had nothing to do with German positions. The document was a detailed assessment of the 1st Infantry Division's internal culture. Page after page of observations that would have been laughable if they were not being used to justify removing a victorious general. The Big Red One did not salute properly. Officers and enlisted men interacted too casually. Uniforms were not regulation. Equipment was stored in ways that violated Army standards. The division operated more like a frontier militia than a professional military unit. And most damning in Bradley's assessment, the entire division displayed absolute loyalty to Terry Allen personally, not to the Army command structure. Eisenhower read it twice. He understood what Bradley was really saying. Allen had created a private army, a cult of personality disguised as a military division. His soldiers would follow him anywhere, do anything he ordered, fight through impossible odds because they believed Terry Allen was different from other generals. They were right. He was different. He led from the front. He shared their risks. He ignored stupid orders from rear echelon officers who had never heard a shot fired in anger. His men loved him for it. That love terrified Eisenhower because it existed outside the formal chain of command. If Allen decided to ignore an order, 30,000 men would back his decision over Eisenhower's authority. The truth that Eisenhower could not write in any official document was simpler. Terry Allen was uncontrollable. He advanced when ordered to consolidate. He attacked at night when doctrine called for daylight operations. He outpaced supply lines and forced logistics officers to improvise. He won battles, but created chaos in the carefully planned operational schedules that Eisenhower was building for the invasion of France. A professional army needed predictable commanders who followed doctrine. Allen was the opposite of predictable. So Eisenhower made the calculation. Better to remove him now while the Mediterranean campaign was winding down than to deal with him during the cross-channel invasion, where unpredictability could cost thousands of lives. What the generals in the rear found in that report was not failure. It was something they feared much more: total independence. Allen did not need permission to be aggressive. He did not need encouragement to attack. He simply fought with a relentless tempo that ignored conventional limits. His division had advanced farther in Sicily than any other Allied unit. They had destroyed German defensive positions that were supposed to hold for weeks. They had achieved objectives ahead of schedule so consistently that other divisions struggled to keep up. For Eisenhower and Bradley, this was not a feature. It was a bug in the system that needed to be eliminated. August 10, 1943. The relief order reached Allen's headquarters. He read it. Standing in the same Sicilian dust where his division had just won their greatest victory. No explanation beyond the typed words about discipline and fresh leadership. No acknowledgement of El Guitar, where he had shattered the 10th Panzer Division. No mention of the Sicily landings, where the Big Red One had been first off the beach and first into the interior. Just removal. Effective immediately. Pack your gear and report to the United States for reassignment. Allen folded the paper and put it in his pocket. He had just delivered Eisenhower the victory that opened the route to Messina. His reward was a plane ticket home and the end of his combat command. The 1st Infantry Division received a new commander who immediately began implementing proper Army standards. Uniforms were corrected. Saluting was enforced. The chaotic command post was reorganized to regulation specifications. Equipment was stored according to manual. Within 3 weeks, the Big Red One looked like every other American division. Professional, disciplined, predictable. Bradley visited and expressed satisfaction. The division had been civilized. What nobody measured was whether civilizing the division had made it more effective. That question would be answered later, when the divisions that looked professional ran into German defenses they could not break. Allen arrived in the United States in September, expecting his career was over. He had been relieved in combat. That was the mark of failure for any general officer. He was assigned to a training command in Texas, not frontline duty, not operational planning, but training. It was exile disguised as a new assignment. Eisenhower and Bradley had made their position clear. Terry Allen's aggressive, undisciplined approach had no place in the modern professional army they were building. Allen accepted it without public complaint. He trained soldiers. He watched the European campaign develop from newspaper reports and classified summaries. And he waited. They were about to discover that firing their best winner was a mistake that would haunt them for exactly 1 year. By November 1944, the Allied advance across France had hit a wall. The broad front strategy that Eisenhower had planned so carefully was stalling against the Siegfried Line. American divisions approached German fortifications and could not break through. They attacked according to doctrine. They coordinated artillery and infantry. They maintained proper unit spacing and followed the tactical manuals. And they died in front of concrete bunkers without achieving breakthrough. The casualty lists grew longer. The advance slowed, then stopped completely. The problem was what Eisenhower had optimized for. His professional, disciplined divisions were predictable. They attacked during daylight when observation was optimal. They consolidated gains before advancing. They maintained supply lines and unit cohesion according to regulation. German defenders knew exactly what to expect and prepared accordingly. American attacks became routine. Launch artillery preparation at dawn. Infantry advance at 0800. Consolidate by 1400. Repeat the next day. German machine gunners set their watches by it. What the Americans needed was someone who did not follow the pattern, someone who attacked at midnight, someone who maintained tempo instead of consolidating, someone who broke through because the enemy could not predict where or when he would hit next. Eisenhower had fired that someone 15 months earlier for being too aggressive. Now he was staring at casualty reports from divisions that were too disciplined to win. The irony was not lost on his staff officers. The general who had been removed for lack of discipline was exactly what they needed to break the discipline stalemate at the Siegfried Line. But admitting that would mean admitting the firing had been wrong. Eisenhower was not ready to make that admission, not yet. The Allied advance was about to hit a wall, and the only man with a sledgehammer was sitting in an office in Washington. December 1944. The situation in Europe was deteriorating. The Ardennes offensive, the Battle of the Bulge, caught American forces by surprise and shattered the carefully planned advance schedule. German counterattacks were succeeding because American divisions responded exactly as doctrine predicted. They withdrew to defensible positions. They called for reinforcements. They waited for artillery support. All correct according to the manual, all predictable enough for German commanders to plan around. What Eisenhower needed was a commander who would counterattack immediately, ignore doctrine about consolidating, and hit the Germans where they were not expecting resistance. The cable from European theater headquarters to Washington was marked urgent, January 1945. Subject: request for specific general officer assignment. The text was brief. Major General Terry Allen was requested for immediate combat command in the European theater. Assignment to the 104th Infantry Division, currently preparing for deployment. The request did not explain why. It did not need to. Everyone who read it understood. The professional army had stalled. The disciplined generals could not break through. Eisenhower needed someone who did not care about discipline. He needed the man he had fired for being too aggressive, the man who ignored orders he disagreed with, the man who fought wars instead of managing them. Allen received the orders in late January. Combat Command, the 104th Infantry Division, the Timberwolves, a unit that had never seen combat. Some officers would have viewed it as an insult. A proven combat commander given a green division, while veteran units went to experienced generals. Allen understood what it really meant. Eisenhower was bringing him back because the alternative was losing the war. The professional approach had failed. Now they needed someone who would win ugly. Allen accepted immediately. It was not because he had forgiven the firing, it was because he had a war to finish. The transformation of the Timberwolves began before they deployed. Allen implemented the same training regimen he had used with the Big Red One. Forced marches at 5 miles per hour, instead of the regulation 2.5 miles per hour. Night combat drills while other divisions were sleeping. Emphasis on maintaining tempo over maintaining formation. Aggressive exploitation of any success, instead of careful consolidation. The division trained harder than any other unit preparing for Europe. They complained, they suffered. They learned to fight the way Terry Allen fought, fast, aggressive, and relentless. By March 1945, the Timberwolves were ready to prove that discipline wasn't what won wars. The 104th Infantry Division entered combat on April 7, 1945. German forces were collapsing, but still fighting hard in prepared defensive positions. Other American divisions were advancing methodically, following doctrine, making slow progress at high cost. The Timberwolves attacked at night. They bypassed strong points instead of reducing them. They maintained continuous operations when other divisions paused to rest and resupply. In 6 days, they advanced 60 miles. Veteran divisions that had been fighting since Normandy were stunned. This green unit was moving faster and hitting harder than units with months of combat experience. The difference was not training or equipment. The difference was Terry Allen implementing the exact aggressive doctrine that Eisenhower had rejected in Sicily. Night attacks caught defenders sleeping. Relentless tempo prevented German forces from establishing new defensive lines. Allen showed a willingness to accept casualties in pursuit of a breakthrough instead of husbanding forces through methodical advances. It was everything Bradley had called undisciplined, and it was shattering German defenses that professional divisions could not crack. The Timberwolves spent 195 consecutive days in combat. They specialized in the night attacks that other commanders avoided as too risky. They maintained an operational tempo that exceeded planning estimates. They captured towns, liberated prisoners, and advanced into Germany itself faster than Eisenhower's staff had calculated possible. The combat record spoke for itself. The aggressive, undisciplined approach that had gotten Allen fired in August 1943 was ending the European War in April 1945. Eisenhower watched the reports with emotions he never committed to paper. Allen was proving that aggressive commanders won wars. The Timberwolves were achieving what professional divisions could not. Every night attack, every rapid advance, every objective taken ahead of schedule was implicit criticism of the decision to fire Allen 2 years earlier, but Eisenhower rationalized it. The situation in Sicily had been different. He had needed predictability for the Normandy invasion. Now he needed breakthrough speed. Different situations required different commanders. He convinced himself the firing had been right for that moment, even if bringing Allen back proved necessary later. Germany surrendered in May 1945. The Timberwolves were deep inside Germany, having covered more ground in 2 months than some divisions had covered in a year. Allen received commendations. Eisenhower sent a message acknowledging the division's contribution. The message did not mention Sicily. It did not acknowledge that the aggressive approach rejected in 1943 had proven essential in 1945. It just thanked Allen for his service. Allen read it and understood what it really meant. Eisenhower would never admit the firing had been wrong, but calling Allen back from exile said everything that the official message could not. The revenge was complete and permanent, not in words, but in the record. Terry Allen had been fired for being too aggressive when Eisenhower wanted predictability. 18 months later, Eisenhower begged him to come back because predictability was losing the war. The Timberwolves had proven that aggression won battles. The Big Red One's record stood as evidence that Allen's approach worked. History would note the irony that the general fired for lacking discipline had been recalled to save an army that had too much of it. Eisenhower had chosen between looking professional and winning wars. In Sicily, he chose professionalism. In Germany, he chose winning. Terry Allen was the difference between those choices.